I'm Meg. I have a PhD in sex education policy. Here she is in all her glory. And I believe that comprehensive sex education is a really crucial part in proactively addressing many of the attacks that we see on reproductive rights and LGBTQIA freedoms, specifically trans freedoms in the US right now. I know that there are so many really deeply scary things happening in the world right now, and in the US in particular, when it comes to reproductive rights, like bans on abortion care, suggestions from politicians that we should ban or limit birth control access, things like banning trans kids from sports, and attacks on trans folks simply existing and getting the healthcare that they need and deserve. And I believe that sex education and access to more information is such a critical place and has such a critical role in our ability to not be stuck on the defensive of these issues. It is so easy to scare people and redefine words like abortion, which right-wing politicians are trying to do, when the general population doesn't have a strong understanding of things like their bodies and reproduction and gender and sex. But you can't convince a person who understands pregnancy that an ectopic pregnancy can be safely carried to term. You can't convince a person who understands gender and sex that sex in the biological sense is a binary. You just can't convince them when they have that real knowledge, and you can't scare them with those pieces of information. Sex education is urgent. Right-wing politicians have been playing the long game for decades with scare tactics and fear-mongering, and we need to push for more education, more context, more information so we can empower people with knowledge so we're not falling into their traps of fear. I'll share some quick stats to illustrate the point of what's happening right now in terms of sex education in the United States. The first one is that 29 states in the District of Columbia require sex education. That's 29 out of 50. 38 states require HIV education, which seems like a higher number, but it's important to recognize that 30 states require schools to emphasize the importance of abstinence. So even if you're getting comprehensive sex education, meaning there's information on consent or contraceptive care or different things like that, or relationships even in a great sex education classroom, we have 30 states that are really focused on abstinence. And last, 13 states don't require sex education or STI or HIV instruction to have any of the following, and I'll list them off. It doesn't need to be age appropriate. It doesn't need to be medically accurate. It doesn't need to be culturally responsive, and it doesn't have to be evidence-based. So we have these sex education policies around the country that are not comprehensive, that are not giving students honest information, that are giving half-truths, and we need to fight for more information so we can have that knowledge and have that empowerment for people not to be scared, for people to fight back against these unjust attacks on reproductive rights, on gender care, on everything else. And that's really what I want this space to be. I'm going to do a 50 states of sex education tour where I go over the status of sex education in each state. I'm going to talk about the way that we can learn about things better, the way that we can share information better, and try to give folks some knowledge and skills to fight for the sex education that we deserve.